History books are usually reserved for the heroes, the geniuses, and the visionaries who built our world. But look closer at the fine print, and you'll find that some of the most successful people to ever walk the earth were actually world-class liars. We're talking about fake doctors performing high-stakes surgeries, commoners who talked their way onto royal thrones, and a woman who convinced the king's own physicians she was giving birth to literal rabbits. These are 10 historical figures who didn't just tell a lie, they lived one, building entire empires on foundations of pure fiction. Their stories are so bold, so outrageous, and so impossibly brazen that you'll find yourself checking to see if you're still awake. Let's dive into the greatest deceptions in human history. Number 1. The Prince of Nowhere, Gregor MacGregor and the Land of Poyais. In the 1820s, a Scottish soldier named Gregor MacGregor achieved the unthinkable. He sold a country that didn't exist. Walking into London's elite circles, he introduced himself as the Cazique, or Prince of Poyais, a lush, developed nation in Central America. He didn't just have a story, he had a flag, a coat of arms, a national currency, and a detailed map. He convinced London banks to sell government bonds for Poyais and persuaded hundreds of settlers to buy land in this tropical paradise. In 1822, 2 ships carrying 250 hopeful colonists sailed across the Atlantic. When they arrived at the coordinates, they didn't find a bustling capital city or fertile farms. They found a mosquito-infested, swampy jungle with no sign of human civilization. Over 150 people died of starvation and yellow fever before a passing ship rescued the survivors. The most insane part? MacGregor fled to France, where he tried to run the exact same scam on the French public. He was eventually acquitted of fraud because his lies were so elaborate that people assumed he must have been delusional rather than criminal. Number 2. The Rabbit Mother, Mary Toft's medical miracle. In 1726, the English town of Godalming became the center of a medical mystery that baffled the nation. A woman named Mary Toft convinced local doctors that she was giving birth to rabbits. This wasn't a one-time event. Over several weeks, she allegedly delivered nearly 20 rabbits. The news reached King George I, who sent his personal surgeon, Nathaniel St. Andrew, to investigate. To everyone's horror, the royal surgeon watched her give birth to rabbit parts and published an official report declaring the phenomenon real. For a few weeks, the entire country stopped eating rabbit meat in terror. The hoax only fell apart when a porter at the hospital was caught trying to sneak a young rabbit into Mary's room. She eventually confessed that she had been manually inserting the animals to fake the deliveries. The scandal ruined the careers of several high-ranking doctors and remains one of the most embarrassing moments in the history of British medicine. Number 3. The Captain of Köpenick, Wilhelm Voigt's uniform. Wilhelm Voigt was a 57-year-old unemployed shoemaker with a lengthy criminal record and absolutely no military experience. In 1906, he decided to test the German obsession with military authority. He bought a used captain's uniform from a thrift shop, put it on, and walked onto the streets of Berlin. He spotted a group of soldiers, and using a barked command, he ordered them to follow him. Because he was wearing the uniform, they obeyed without question. Voigt marched his platoon to the suburb of Köpenick, took over the town hall, arrested the mayor, and confiscated the city treasury, totaling 4,000 marks. He then ordered the soldiers to guard the building while he hopped on a train and disappeared. He was eventually caught, but the German public found the stunt so hilarious that Kaiser Wilhelm II actually pardoned him, calling him a lovable scoundrel who proved how much Germans loved a good uniform.
Number 4. The Man Who Sold the Eiffel Tower, Victor Lustig. Victor Lustig is often cited as the smoothest con artist in history. In 1925, while sitting in a Paris cafe, he read an article about how the Eiffel Tower was rusting and expensive to maintain. Lustig saw an opportunity. He forged government stationery, identified himself as a high-level official, and invited the city's top scrap metal dealers to a secret meeting at a luxury hotel. He told them the government had decided to tear the tower down and sell it for scrap, but wanted to keep it quiet to avoid public outcry. One dealer, André Poisson, was so desperate to prove himself in the industry that he not only paid for the tower, but also gave Lustig a massive bribe to ensure he won the bid. Lustig took the cash and fled to Austria. When he realized the victim was too embarrassed to report the crime to the police, Lustig actually went back to Paris a month later and tried to sell the Eiffel Tower a second time to a different group of dealers. He's so famous for his deceptions that a Hollywood movie was eventually made about his life, though he probably could have played the lead role better than the actual actor. Number 6. The Spy Who Fooled Hitler. Juan Pujol Garcia, Agent Garbo. Juan Pujol Garcia was a Spanish chicken farmer who hated Nazis so much he decided to become a spy. When the British turned him down, he didn't give up. He went to the Germans, convinced them he was a fanatical Nazi, and became a double agent. Based in Lisbon, he sent the Abwehr, German intelligence, hundreds of reports about British troop movements, reports he made up entirely using a tourist map of England and a blue guide. Eventually, the British realized he was a genius and brought him on board, giving him the code name Garbo. Together, they created a phantom army of 27 fake subagents that Pujol managed. His greatest lie came during D-Day. He convinced the German High Command that the Normandy landings were just a distraction and that the real attack was coming to the Pas-de-Calais. Hitler believed him so completely that he kept vital divisions away from the beaches of Normandy for weeks. Pujol is the only person in history to receive both an Iron Cross from Germany and an MBE from Britain. Number 7. The Princess from Nowhere, Princess Carabou. In 1817, a young woman wearing exotic clothing appeared in a small English village, speaking a language no one could understand. A sailor eventually claimed he could translate her dialect, identifying her as Princess Carabou from the distant island of Javasu in the Indian Ocean. She claimed she had been kidnapped by pirates and jumped overboard to escape. The British aristocracy fell in love with her. She was invited to the finest estates where she performed strange native dances and demonstrated how to use a bow and arrow. For weeks, she was the toast of the town. The fantasy ended when a local boarding house owner saw her portrait in the newspaper and recognized her as Mary Baker, a cobbler's daughter from Devon. Mary had simply been bored with her working-class life and invented the princess persona to see how far it would take her. Even after being exposed, she remained a minor celebrity for her sheer creativity.
Number 8. The Alchemist of High Society, Count Alessandro di Cagliostro. In the late 1700s, a man calling himself Count Cagliostro swept through the royal courts of Europe. He claimed to be an immortal alchemist who could turn lead into gold, talk to spirits, and brew a serum of youth that could make an 80-year-old look 20. He was welcomed by King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, and he founded a new branch of Freemasonry that attracted the wealthiest people in France. In reality, his name was Giuseppe Balsamo, a petty forger from Sicily. He and his wife traveled the continent using simple parlor tricks and massive amounts of charisma to swindle the elite. His downfall came with the affair of the diamond necklace, a massive scandal involving a forged purchase of the world's most expensive piece of jewelry. While he was eventually cleared of the theft, the trial exposed his true identity. He ended his life in an Inquisition prison, proving that even immortals can't lie their way out of a jail cell forever. Number 9. The Teenage Pilot, Frank Abagnale's Legendary Lies. Frank Abagnale became a household name thanks to the movie Catch Me If You Can. According to his own story, he was a teenage prodigy who successfully impersonated a Pan Am pilot, a doctor, and a legal prosecutor, all while cashing millions of dollars in forged checks before he was 21.
He claimed he eluded the FBI for years in a high-stakes game of cat and mouse across 26 countries. However, recent investigations by journalists and historians suggest that Abagnale's greatest con was the story itself. Records show that during much of the time he claimed to be flying planes and practicing medicine, he was actually in prison for petty theft. While he was certainly a criminal, the glamorous version of his life appears to be a massive exaggeration designed to sell books and speaking tours. It's the ultimate irony. The world's most famous liar might have been lying about how good he was at lying. Number 10. The Ghost of Anastasia, Anna Anderson. For over 60 years, the world wondered if one member of the Russian royal family had survived the Bolshevik execution. In 1920, a woman pulled from a Berlin canal claimed she was the Grand Duchess Anastasia Romanov. She became known as Anna Anderson, and her story divided the world. She had scars on her body that matched injuries Anastasia might have sustained, and she possessed a strange, intimate knowledge of the Russian court. Some members of the Romanov family believed her, while others called her a fraud. The legal battle to prove her identity lasted for decades, the longest in German history. Anna lived the rest of her life as royalty in exile in Virginia. It wasn't until the 1990s, years after her death, that DNA testing on her remains and the newly discovered bodies of the Romanovs proved she was actually Franziska Szankowska, a Polish factory worker. She had lived a lie so convincingly that she likely believed it herself until the day she died. From fake princes to space-aged daggers, these stories prove that the line between history and fiction is often as thin as a used Prussian uniform. These people didn't just break the rules, they rewrote them using nothing but audacity and an ironclad poker face. It makes you wonder, how many people in our history books today are only there because they were better at lying than anyone else? If you could fake your way into any job or title tomorrow without getting caught, what would you choose? A neurosurgeon? A billionaire heir? Let me know your most ambitious fake-it-till-you-make-it plan in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey into the world of historical deceptions, smash that subscribe button. And remember, stay curious, but maybe double-check those credentials.